All right, let's dig deeper on this. Let's bring in Bill Daly, former FBI investigator. So what do you make of what he said there? It was a bit of a rant as he was being led into the courthouse. He said this is extremely unjust and an insult to the intelligence of the American people. I believe he finished it off by saying this is a lived experience, which would seem to perhaps relate to experiences that people who are acquainted with him have relayed to the media, saying that he had had back surgery and was in extreme pain from time to time.
You know, John, this could be just a situation of him posturing himself, kind of knowing what's inevitable, that he's going to be facing proceedings, he's going to be facing a court, he's going to be facing a potential jury. And is it kind of posturing one way or the other? Is it posturing just because he's kind of acting out and maybe appears perhaps a bit erratic? Or is he kind of putting forward his innocence in some way? So we just don't know, but I think it is probably a calculated move by him. And we'll see how it all turns out. You know, meanwhile, the investigation, continues. And I think it is important for people to understand that all these elements of the investigation are very important, particularly because we need to make sure, as investigators move forward, they're able to actually put Mangione actually on 54th Street that morning. Right now, we have a number of circumstantial pieces of evidence between the weapon that was found with him. Is that the same weapon that was used? There are a number of things, John, that need to come together in order to make this case more concrete.
Yeah, the only thing that we seem to know, I think with reasonable certainty at this point, is that the fake ID that he showed police officers yesterday in that McDonald's in Altoona was the same name that he had used to check into that hostel in New York City. We've now got that piece of video with subtitles on it when he was yelling to the press as he was led into the courthouse. Let's play that out for you now.
Down. Luigi. Oh my God! And it's completely out of touch. And it's an insult to the intelligence of the American people. It's a lived experience.
Yeah. So that is as we thought it was. Or he said it's extremely unjust, insult to the intelligence of the American people. This is a lived experience, perhaps relating to his own experience, having had some sort of injury or surgery, and then dealing with the healthcare industry after that. What I find interesting is that this guy has an affinity for the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski. He did a review on the Unabomber's so-called manifesto. And there are some interesting parallels between the two of them. They're both highly intelligent. Kaczynski attended Harvard at the age of 16. Mangione went to the University of Pennsylvania, another Ivy League college. Both of them were math whizzes, though Kaczynski got a PhD. Kaczynski had a disdain for technology. That should be D-I-S-D-A-I-N, for technology. Mangione had a disdain for corporations. Kaczynski dropped out of society. Mangione dropped off the radar of family and friends. I mean, here we have two highly intelligent people who apparently, according to police, went completely off the rails. In your experience, how does that happen?
Well, you just don't know what happens in people's lives. We just don't know what that switch that may have been thrown that took this person from a course of being an accomplished individual, a person of privilege, to now being a suspect in this heinous act. You know what? Yesterday we did speak about this, John, and I mentioned in a different way the parallel between Ted Kaczynski and the Unabomber is the fact that who identified Ted Kaczynski was a family member. In this case, it was not a family member or anyone else he knew closely who came up and said, this is him in the photos. It happened to be a stranger in the McDonald's. So there are some parallels, and I think, it is interesting is that somebody who's highly educated, who's obviously, quite intelligent, there's something that happens along the way, and we just don't know what that is. But I think the key issue here is the fact of getting this evidence so that we don't have an issue when they go to court that they use the SOG defense, which is some other guy defense. We need to actually place him there with that weapon that morning. And I think going back to some of the early evidence, John, that was come upon early in this investigation was the wrapper, the bottle of water that he apparently discarded. Does that have DNA that places him there that morning? Is that weapon that was found on him, is that the same weapon that was used? And obviously ballistics and forensics will be able to tell us a bit more of that. All those things are going to be very key. Other than that, there's a lot of other things that are very circumstantial, and we just don't want it to be, as we've seen in other trials, where they point the finger and say, oh, yes, all these things are true about him, but he did not pull the trigger.
All right. Well, we will follow this as it unravels. Bill Daly, good to have you with us today. Appreciate it.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.